kitty's biting my toe. Welcome to the Coffee Chat at Zinnia's Way. I'm Rhonda. Join me as we explore living, loving, and learning through the ascension. Namaste. Today I'd like to explore the topic of animal consciousness. Now, if you've spent any time looking around my channel, you've probably figured out that I love animals. Dogs, cats, chickens, ducks, goats, just to name a few of the animals that we have here at our urban farm sanctuary, Zinnia's Way. Now that the garden's planted, that the baby chickens and ducks are brooded, I have some extra time that I can dedicate to my beloved goats. I say beloved because I love my goats. I say beloved because I love them. I say beloved because any normal person would have probably sold them or eaten them as a means of population control. I say beloved because I seek to get a better understanding of their consciousness and of their goat souls. So, sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's explore goat consciousness and the soul contracts that I have with my goats. So, what is ascension? Let's just take a quick moment here to talk a little bit about ascension as I understand it, or I have come to and grown to understand it. From what I have come to believe and understand and know, our planet, Gaia, Earth, is in an ascension process. And amid that process, there's also the ascension of plants and animals and humanity. Individual souls have presented themselves on the planet at this time in order to help with the ascension of the earth and the plants and the animals and humanity into a higher level, a higher density of energy and existence. That's just ascension in a nutshell. Of course, we'll be talking about that a lot more on a lot of my other videos. That's part of the purpose of this channel, as well as just to help people understand that and converse about it and learn about it and to know about it. And I'm still learning about it, so we can learn about it and understand it together. But I really have come to believe that one of my soul contracts that I might have made is with these animals, again, to help them in this ascension process. And some are further along consciously than others, and those are the ones that have the capacity and the ability to connect with a human and to befriend them and warm up to them and socialize with humans. The ones that are more skittish and standoffish, I feel like are either suffering from more trauma in some way in this, either from this existence or from, I will say, a past life existence, or they are just a lower, they're a soul that's at a lower level of consciousness and perhaps will be ascending, but not to as high of a level as those that are more friendly and more kind and loving, because at the heart of ascension, at the heart of this up-leveling, at the heart of this new creation and this new way of living and this new way of being is love. So this whole journey is essentially, you can boil it down to teaching not only humanity how to love and to be loved, but also helping the animals learn how to love and how to be loved. So you might be wondering how I came about this notion of studying goat consciousness and exploring what that means, and specifically what it means for me to have a soul contract, or what I'm coming to understand on my ascension journey, coming to understand this notion of a soul contract that I have with my goats. Since I had the concept of having an urban farm, I always wanted to have goats on that farm, and we started off with 2 goats, which is quite manageable. We started off with them, and we got them so that they could have a purpose and a function, because every animal that we had on our farm, we wanted to have a purpose and a function, to be contributing, not just as pets and not just as and interesting sort of animals to have. We wanted them to be contributing in some way to the farm. So our cats catch mice, our dogs protect our vegetables and our other animals that we have, and us, our dogs protect us. So our goats, when we got our goats, the purpose that we had for them, or the reason that we thought that we would get them, is to eat the weeds in our space that we had dedicated for our gardens. Now, the first thing that we learned about goats is that although people say that goats will eat anything, although they will eat the paper, they'll eat the feed bags, they will eat a lot of things that you don't want them to eat, goats don't eat all of the weeds that are in your garden, and especially the goats did not eat the weeds that we most particularly wanted them to eat. But there was good reason for this. I think those weeds were toxic, and goats are smart. They have an internal knowing about things. So these goats knew not to eat poisonous nightshade. They knew not to eat some of the other weeds that were in there that I have yet to identify. I have my dad to thank for the introduction of me to goat yoga, the concept of goat yoga. Oh, listen. That's my bird. He came to communicate. Ooh. Could be a mating call. So, back to what I was saying. I have my daddy to thank for introducing me to the idea of goat yoga. I hadn't heard of it before, but he said, hey, you have goats, you do yoga, so maybe you could do goat yoga. And there started, that began my quest for baby goats, because I looked up some goat yoga videos, and it's really cute and fun to do goat yoga with baby goats. So I thought, how can we do this here at Zinnia's Way? So I went on the quest to find more baby goats, and I wanted them right then and right there, and I found them, and got a couple um, little goats that had not been tamed, that had not been debudded. So then we enter the conundrum of goats with horns versus goats with no horns. Um, the goats with horns were old enough that it was getting dangerous to debud them at that time. It would have required bandaging their heads for a couple of weeks after a more surgical procedure to remove the horns. And I felt like I had made the contract with the goat owner that I was buying the goats from, so I took the goats when we went to get them. I could have just left them at that farm and never even taken them, backed out of that. But had I done that, I wouldn't have the relationship with the most fascinating goat in my herd. That's Toffee. And we'll talk more about Toffee later because she's the one that really has piqued my interest in animal communication. And I feel like as I go through this process and I learn how to work with these animals, she'll be my main. She'll be part of my main focus, but she certainly was the impetus to get me to really question if there's really more to goats on a soul level than meets the eye or than we have ever believed. So, that was back, probably 4 or 5 years ago. I started down the goat yoga path and getting baby goats for goat yoga. And those two baby goats that we bought, again, they weren't tame. It took a while. Actually, they're two of the friendliest goats that we have now, but it took a while to tame them, so they weren't really goat yoga material once we got them. And so I set down another path to have more goat babies, which is the path of we could get our own buck and we could breed these girl goats that we have to create our own babies and have our own babies for goat yoga. We could make them tame and calm and friendly and everybody would love them. So then we thought of wanting to raise goats to provide more food for us. Our chickens gave us eggs. Our ducks gave us eggs. So we thought perhaps we could use the goats and work with them to give us milk. Raw goat milk has a lot of good nutrition in it. Hi, Bella. Hi, beauty. Hi, sweetheart. Hi. Hello. So goat milk has a lot of nutrition in it, especially raw goat milk. It's very good for the gut and it's very good. Hi. So we thought perhaps we could use our goats for milk. I have to show you. This is Bella. Bella. Bella, say hello. Hello. So, anyway, you lick me. You lick me so much. Yes, you are. Yes, you lick me so much. So, we thought we could use our goats to provide milk for us. Well, I grew up on a dairy farm, and I understand how animals and milk production works. In order for a dairy animal to give milk, that dairy animal must get pregnant, and that dairy animal must have a baby, and that starts the milk production cycle. So that put us in the predicament of we needed goat babies. So in order to have goat babies, we had two girl goats, and we needed a boy. We needed a buck. So we went through the dilemma of what kind of buck to get, whether we wanted to own one, whether we wanted to rent one. And we've often and for a while wanted to really create a self-sustaining, self-sufficient system at our urban farm at Zinni's Way. So we decided that we could perhaps actually buy a buck, baby, bottle raise them so that they're very gentle, and that way be able to have our own source of breeding our female goats whenever we needed to do so. Well, bucks can't just live off separated from the rest of the herd because goats are herd animals. So our buck needed a friend, so we thought we would then need to purchase a second goat as a friend. So we found a baby buck, brought him home. His name was Cain, and we started raising him and realized early on in the process that we're going to need a companion, a male companion for this baby goat. So enter our second baby goat, Bob Marley. And as it turns out, Bob Marley, maybe because we named him Bob Marley, was a lot more chill than Hurricane, who was really rambunctious and almost, very spirited and energetic, kind of like a hurricane. And isn't this interesting too? I'm just kind of realizing that as I'm talking through this story, how, maybe what we name our pets can really affect their demeanor, or maybe we pick up on their soul essence and name our pets accordingly. So, enter Bob Marley, and then having two boy goats. You can check out my video of that. I'll leave a link below so that you can check out that video of bringing home the two baby goats. But they were sweet, and we did do some goat yoga with Bob Marley and Cain. So that was good. So we did this, we raised goats, and we did have our first babies born. Our first goats were very good mothers, and it's a very long story, and it's going to take way more than 15 minutes. I'm going to reconsider how we're going to enter into this. Okay. It's hurricane season again in North Carolina, and we have, we're blessed at Zinni's Way to have a lot of woods, old oak forested woods, and that's where you hear the birds. It's a beautiful place to be, but we've had some trees come down, and trees will come down during storms. And in 2018, we had a huge tree come down on top of our boy goat enclosure. It demolished the fence, smashed their living pen. Thankfully, the boys were not injured, but I did come out to do chores one morning, and I saw the two boys out in our woods standing in front of the gate that led to the pen, the enclosure, with all the girl goats in it. So I was grateful that the boys were not injured, but a little bit in a predicament of what to do with the boy goats. So I had to put them in together with the girl goats, and that began the real goat, like the exponential. That began the exponential goat growth here at Zinni's Way that I am now trying to properly mitigate or figure out a way of doing something with all of my goats. Something productive, something not just productive for me, but something productive for humanity and for the souls and the soul essences of my goats. So, um, when you put a buck in with a herd full of female goats, what you get about 5 months later is a goat explosion. And that's what we got. He started with the youngest babies, and they were the first that he got pregnant. So we had babies that were only 4 months old at the time that he got pregnant, that they were 9 months old, giving birth to babies. And it was just eye-opening. Another lesson in goat psychology, goat behavior. I guess goat psychology 201. And as at that time, all the goats were pregnant, including Toffee. Most of the goats had pretty safe deliveries, but that meant we had 15 baby goats born that year. We did lose some babies. Some of the goats had 3 babies born and maybe only 2 survived. We had some other accidents, so nature took action, I suppose you could say, and kept the population to a certain level of control at that point. But we had one goat, Toffee, who I mentioned earlier, one of our goats with horns. She had gotten pregnant, and I came out one morning to do chores, and I could tell that she had miscarried. And there were 2 fetuses, goat fetuses there, and I picked them up and disposed of them. And she seemed to be okay health-wise, but mentally, she just went into a state of depression, and she mourned, and she would go and to the place where the babies were born and smell it, and you could tell that she was grieving. She didn't eat for a few days. But we comforted her, and she seemed to overcome this and get back to normal goat behavior. But there was always that memory in my mind of how of her miscarriage, and how she again was so emotional over it. And I didn't realize that goats could have emotions, and but she did. The other thing, as far as babies being born in the goat herds, goats are herd animals, and it's really been amazing to me how the goats stay together in their family units, even within the larger goat herd. So the babies and grandbabies and on and on, like they will stay together and lay together, and they know each other, they know their families. When I grew up on a farm, it was a dairy production farm, so we would always separate the calves from their mothers at birth. I didn't think anything of it, and that's how you produced milk. And we'd bottle feed the babies and milk the cows to get the milk to drink and to sell. So this experience with my goats and raising them together actually showed me again, like, what that herd I had known that goats were herd animals, but it gave me an even deeper understanding to what that herd mentality for goats meant, breaking it down even into even smaller familial family groups. So that was another eye-opening experience to me on my goat consciousness journey. So after our initial goat explosion, I was very concerned and um, about how to deal with all of this growing number of goats that we had, and so um, we had not been able to repair the extensive damage to the boy goat area yet at that time. So we divided off different paddocks in our main goat yard area, so that we could separate the boys from the girls again. So that hopefully we could manage the pregnancy rate of our goats in the goat yard. But fencing is made poorly and cheaply, and goats with horns can be really destructive. Goats can just be destructive, period. And that is something that has really frustrated me on this journey, over and over and over again. So that's an area that I probably would like to explore more as I go more into this study of the consciousness of my goats. But the suffice it to say, we separated the boys from the girls, but they still managed to find a way to get with each other on multiple occasions, so that we continued having babies even after we thought that we had mitigated the problem the first time. And it did decrease the number of births that we were having, but it didn't stop it totally. So one of um, one of the pregnancies that came about was Toffee again. And I was actually, even though we had a lot of other goats and we really didn't need more goat babies at the time, I was happy for Toffee that she was finally able to get pregnant again. And so it was coming upon the time for her to deliver, and she was in labor. And I was excited for her, but it ended up being a really difficult labor. Probably, 12 hours, over 12 hours. Goats are pretty good. All of our goats have been able to deliver the babies mostly on their own. We did help some of the younger ones with their deliveries because they were so small. But for the most part, we've taken a kind of a hands-off, more natural approach to the goats giving birth, and they've done very well. Toffee, on the other hand, again, was a difficult case, and as it ended up, I came out. She'd gone into labor about 6 o'clock the night before. I checked her a couple times throughout the night. I went out at 6 in that morning, and one of the babies was beginning to present, but it was backwards. Their feet out, but I could tell they were back feet. So I went in and I helped her deliver the babies. The first one survived. There was one in the middle that didn't have placenta over it whenever it was coming out. I think it got water in its lungs, so that middle baby died. And then there was a third baby that came out, and so the first and the third baby survived. And I was so happy, and I was excited for Toffee because I thought she was going to get to be the mother. She was going to get to have her babies. But I put the babies down for her to lick them and clean them and take care of them how goats normally will after their babies are born. Toffee didn't want anything to do with the babies. She started butting them with her horns, pushing them away, and I was perplexed. I didn't want her to hurt the babies, so we took the babies in and we raised them, bottle raised them ourselves. And the interesting thing, though, about that is that Toffee still had milk, because that she would have normally been feeding the babies if they were nursing from her. But I thought, well, this could be a good opportunity for us to actually start collecting some milk from our goats. So Toffee would let me milk her. I didn't put her in a stanchion or a milking stand. I could just go up behind her, pet her, wash off her udder, cleanse her, and then just milk her out quite naturally. And she'd come to me. I'd feed her while I was doing that, so she'd seek me out. She'd come to me and she'd let me do that for a period of time. After she got tired of standing there, she kind of kick the bucket and then walk away. And we did this for a while, but it was very, very fascinating to me how it deepened our relationship. It felt like it deepened our relationship, how she'd come to me and she'd just allow me to do this without fighting. So that was kind of my, I guess, goat psychology 301 course of just another depth and intrigue of interest in you know what is going on inside of the head and heart and soul of the goats. So I am going to be, as I continue in this journey, I'm going to be reading this book. You can see this little book right here. It's called Animal Talk, Interspecies Telepathic Communication. So we're not going to get into it a whole lot today. I just wanted to give you kind of the basic understanding of what's fascinated me about my goats, why I'm starting down this journey, and even beginning to question and want to research and understand more about goat consciousness. So if you'd like to pick up your own copy and read along with me, I encourage you to do that. And this can be applied to any animal or insect creature. I'm going to focus specifically on my goats, but as I am restoring the telepathic connection, I hope to be able to extend that to the other animals that are on my urban farm here at Zinnia's Way. My ducks, my chickens, and of course my cats and dogs. I actually feel like I have more of a telepathic and more of a communication system going on with them. I've got a little kitty up here by me now. So, so join me and continue to follow me on this journey as we find out more and learn more together about goats and goat consciousness and animals and animal consciousness and love and life and learning here at Zinnia's Way as we journey on this ascension path together. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye for now.